Hollywood has been linked to the American film industry for centuries. From the early days of silent films, directors and actors have perfected the craft of making films that enrich the values of moviegoers. Since The Count of Monte Cristo graced the silver screens in 1908 and wowed viewers, the vast wealth of entertainment that has come from the famed Tinseltown is unlike any other form of entertainment. As the years passed and the development of modern filmmaking tech progressed, so did film and its storytelling magic. The silent era of film introduced fundamental techniques still in use today, while the golden age of Hollywood gave the world complex plot lines and stellar narratives. The explosion of the independent era in the 1990s led to the success of home videos and horror subgenre. Outside of Hollywood, the world at times progressed at a slower pace than the likes of Steven Spielberg and Alfred Hitchcock. Today's box office is dominated by the likes of Marvel, DC, and other fantasy-based studios to which people refer to as the superhero era. Number 10. Silent film, 1894 to 1931. Held as the beginning of the film industry, films would cease to exist without this important piece of the film era. A silent film is a film with no dialogue spoken. Films during this era usually explained the on-screen action with title cards. The era effectively came to an end around the release of The Jazz Singer. The silent era gave early Hollywood its first stars. The likes of Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Mary Pickford headlined an era that set the tone for what Hollywood and the American film industry could be. Number 9. Gangster film, 1930s. The emergence of big-screen criminals getting away from the law began around the Great Depression, a time when America was at its worst. In a sense, gangsters' films held more of the traditional American values, leaning more on the work hard, play hard mentality to fund their businesses. 1930s gangster film Little Caesar, Hollywood's first gangster film, showcased the gangster trope unlike many before. Hollywood saw this goldmine of Little Caesar and ran with it, churning out more than 50 gangster films over the next few years. With such an impact on the box office and the audience, many worried about gangster films' effect on society. Towards the end of the 1930s, gangster films would begin to fade from public interest and, ultimately, Hollywood itself. Number 8. Hollywood Studios, 1920s to 1950s. With Hollywood newly formed in Los Angeles, the race for valuable real estate and mass dominance in the area began just a few years later. Film studios began rapid production on various projects to create a new generation of media around the 1920s. The inclusion of the studio system helped generate more revenue. Society's interest in film and television led to the creation of the 5 film studios such as Paramount, MGM, Fox, Warner, and RKO. While many other independent studios tried to capture the essence of these powerhouse studios, none reigned supreme over the Big Five during the 1920s. Number 7. Slasher films, 1978 to 1984. The slasher film era saw the emergence of a niche brand of horror that launched some of the most successful film franchises. The slasher film genre is a subgenre of horror that usually sees a masked figure stalking and murdering a select group of people. Born out of John Carpenter's classic slasher Halloween, the slasher genre dominated the better part of the 90s. To this day, slasher film standards have been passed down over the years, many attempting to recreate their own. Even after the peak of slasher films began to fade, the genre managed to hold its impactful grip on Hollywood. Number 6. Disaster Film Revival, 1990s. Disaster films is a genre that has an impending disaster as its main subject, with humans playing a sort of co-starring role. Disasters may range from natural disasters to supernatural events. The film genre first saw its golden peak back in the 1970s with the release of Airport. Although the era didn't begin during the late 90s, the invention of CGI ultimately gave new life to the genre. With many studios investing in the new technology, the disaster genre saw the likes of Twister, Independence Day, and Titanic as moneymakers. Number 5. Blockbusters, 1970s. The term blockbuster was used as a term for a feature film by a major studio that becomes highly profitable. The team became a mainstay in the American film industry with the release of action-packed films. Spielberg's Jaws is known as the first blockbuster film with Star Wars flowing close behind. Fast forward a few decades and studios have largely invested in the production of blockbusters. The success of said movies usually led to film studios creating franchises to further increase their profits. Number 4. Rom-coms, 1990s. The 1990s saw the rise of romantic comedies with When Harry Met Sally. A lighter tone than traditional romantic films, rom-coms use the best of comedies while still maintaining the plot line of the film. Using quirky characters and a colorful soundtrack, rom-coms became widely successful against a box office dominated by horror slasher films. The era brought classics like 10 Things I Hate About You, You've Got Mail, and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Rom-coms would begin to decline in the 2000s, just as the superhero era began its rise. Number 3. Westerns, 1930s to 1950s. Westerns films were one of the first genres to introduce viewers to the world of cowboys and outlaws. Westerns films were usually based on a lone cowboy on the frontier and their many tangles with outlaws along the way. The era of Westerns was one of Hollywood's longest-running and successful eras of Old Hollywood. Despite its simple premise, the genre managed to keep its roots while pushing the boundaries of Western storytelling. Number 2. Independent cinema, 1990s. As the awe of blockbusters began to fade, the interest in unique storytelling and freedom of expression grew. Gary Beer and Sterling Van Wagenen helped usher in the independent movement with the creation of the Sundance Film Festival in 1978. Along with Robert Redford, they created a movement unlike any other to showcase filmmakers. As the stock of indie films began to rise, Hollywood major studios began to take notice and invest in building their own independent studios. The era gave birth to some classic indie films like Pulp Fiction, Clerks, and The Mask. The Sundance Film Festival still rings as the epicenter of independent cinema. And number 1, a movement in American film history from the mid-1960s to the early 1980s, when a new generation of filmmakers came to prominence, New Hollywood.